hosted by the Journalism Mass Communication program at the International College here at Ming University and the American Institute in Taiwan. Let's give applause and welcome to speakers for today.
Event of such importance would it be possible without the crucial support of our friends. The American Institute in Taiwan has been collaborating with us, the Journalism and Mass Communication program, for some time now, and it has gradually joined us once again for today's event. Please welcome Ms. Julian Lawler, Public Diplomacy Officer at the American Institute in Taiwan.
Hi, good morning. Hi, good morning, everyone. Good to be here. This is my third time here for this event, so this is exciting. There's always such a great panel of speakers, so I will try to talk not too much so that we can leave it for the experts to really share with you what they've been working on and their expertise. But to start, my name is Julian Lawler. I'm a public diplomacy officer at the American Institute in Taiwan. I'm really excited to be here again and see so many of you here for this really important panel discussion on how to be a smart consumer of information in the age of AI. We have, as I mentioned, an amazing lineup of speakers here today, and I'd really like to thank Ming Chuan University, and especially Professor Sophie Chang for arranging this, as well as similar events over the past couple of years. I don't know, has anyone been able to attend this series of events in the past? All of you? Okay, so wait, raise your hand if you've been to one of these media literacy and disinformation events. Okay. So some of you might remember me, but I think we have some fresh faces on the panel, so that's great. So I wanted to start by just introducing the work of AIT and where we fit into this broader topic. So in other words, why am I here today? The American Institute in Taiwan, as you know, is a nonprofit organization that's mandated with representing US interests in Taiwan. And we work really closely with our counterparts here in Taiwan to advance our shared vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific that is connected, prosperous, secure, and resilient. So every day we work to expand cooperation with Taiwan on our many shared interests, from supporting Taiwan's participation in the international environment to deepening our economic and trade ties. But one of the things we also do is work closely with Taiwan on tackling some of our shared challenges. And one of those common challenges that both the United States and Taiwan face is online information manipulation. So, last year in December, Director Sandra Audkirk gave a speech at NTU in which she noted that both the United States and Taiwan are really on the front lines in dealing with the spread of disinformation. And this is especially true as foreign actors are increasingly using social media and emerging technologies to undermine confidence in democratic institutions. I think we're all familiar with AI, and we're all using it daily, and we know that it can really revolutionize how information is created and disseminated and consumed. But at the same time, it's been leveraged to manipulate content and amplify disinformation. And I know Billion will talk a lot about that in her remarks. And this can create polarization and foster societal divisions. This is a challenge to the integrity of the global information space and can erode trust in the traditional and digital media sources. And I know all of you are students of journalism and communication, so I'm sure this is a really important topic to you. And it's particularly worrisome in the context of democratic elections. Taiwan just went through one of those. The US has one coming up soon, so this is a topic that's really on the forefront of a lot of our minds. To the extent that last year, or earlier this year actually, the Secretary of State for the United States, Antony Blinken, said that building a more resilient information environment is an urgent priority, and he laid out several ways that the US Department of State is working to expose, disrupt, and deter disinformation. For example, we work with public and private institutions around the world to uphold media freedom and the safety of journalists. And more relevant to today's discussion, we also invest in strengthening digital and media literacy. We aim to empower citizens to distinguish fact from fiction in order to ensure that people are able to better assess which information is valid, especially as technologies that are emerging that even those of us who consider ourselves very smart and media literate they can still trick us. Like, no one is really immune from that or safe from that. So how can we develop strategies that will allow us to discern what is real and what is not? In Taiwan, we've done a couple of things as AIT. So one of those is we work with partners to teach actually senior citizens out in rural areas of Taiwan how to spot misleading messages online. So we actually use a line messaging campaign to help inform, and we held a couple of in-person workshops for elderly populations who are often targeted by disinformation, actually, to be able to kind of develop those skills. And we have conducted media literacy training during 3-day tech camps in southern Taiwan, among other activities over the last couple of years. And at a bigger level, the US Department of State has released a new democratic roadmap, which is a set of recommendations on how to help people become more aware of and resistant to information manipulation. So, for example, one thing that the roadmap includes is encouraging social media platforms to label AI-generated content so that users know whether the image is real or when it's not. We all know that disinformation is not the problem of one country or one place. It's something that transcends borders. So it's really something that we need to work on collectively and together to address. And with that, I will turn it over to our speakers to talk about what they're doing and their kind of expertise on this topic. And I really want to thank all of our speakers from China News Agency, from Taiwan Plus, and from Kofax, who are going to really share their expertise today. So thank you for being here today. And also thank you to our student speakers, Jennifer and Dawn, who will share their research and kind of their perspective from their countries about this topic. So thank you, and enjoy the discussion today.
Thank you, Ms. Lauder. Now we would like to introduce the host of this panel, Mr. Jonathan Vernivel, instructor at the International College of Ming University, Journalism as Communication program, for an introduction of today's event themes.
Not this one. Oh, it is. Okay. Do you like my picture? I spent hours in AI trying to do this. I gave up and just used PowerPoint instead. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to today's conference. My name is John. For those of you who don't know me, I want to start by saying a big thank you to Julian. She's disappeared. She's here. She was here. Where's she gone there? To Julian, to Sophie, to Roberto, everybody at AIT, and all the student helpers as well. I want to give a brief introduction. I think it's my job today to kind of quickly introduce the panel and to maybe talk a little bit about my experience as a journalist and also somebody who set up the news literacy course here at Ming. Selena's warned me that we're tight for time. I've got 10 minutes. She's going to be like this, like kind of. Then I'll know when to stop. So I set up the news literacy course in 2018. Kind of the time when social media kind of was really affecting news. It was transforming the way that kind of us as journalists, how we kind of made the news, and also how people consume the news. I think what news is now is not kind of clear or so clear in the way like kind of my generation or kind of your parents' generation. You know, we would read the newspapers. You know, we sit down on a Sunday with a hangover, coffee, and kind of read news all day with the supplements about this thick. Or, you know, we would actually wait for bulletins, lunchtime bulletins or kind of evening bulletins. And now I know it's kind of different. And it's kind of frustrating because it feels in some ways that kind of when we're doing the course that we're just kind of plugging holes all the time. We try to take a kind of more holistic view though. So from my perspective, I try and teach them about, you know, as a journalist, you know, how news is kind of created, the whole process. how it's selected, how it's constructed, because students don't really see that side at all, and it's kind of very difficult for them to understand this. And I think, I've got a slide. One thing that I tried to teach them, I'm not going to say what it is, but you can kind of guess what it is. But one of our defenses, and it's kind of a journalistic defense in some ways, is to try to develop a really good BS detector. But it's a kind of balancing act. Whilst you're trying to develop this, also to make sure that students don't become completely cynical as well, or overly cynical. So I think it's like healthily skeptical, but not too cynical about the news that you get. Why? Because I don't want students to distrust everything. I think it's really important to still have trust in the news, that it's still kind of a really essential part for a healthy democracy, and that, whatever people say, journalists really are not the enemy of the people. So hopefully by looking at the role that news media plays in society, I'm trying to get more appreciation, more love for journalism, and that kind of journalism is a force for good. And I think right now, especially in Taiwan at the moment, one of the things that our department is working on is why some countries are more newsworthy than others. When I first came here, Taiwan was not in the media at all. It was pretty invisible. Very rare for stories to be about Taiwan. And that's changed the last 3 or 4 years, especially in the Western media anyway. And that you can't move for Taiwan stories. It's kind of almost like, the kind of poster child for the Western media now. And trying to understand why that is one of the things that we're doing. And I think it's important because how a country is represented in the media, it shapes the kind of worldwide perception of that country. And even countries that are underrepresented, they become kind of largely invisible. And we see that, a lot of things, wars and bad things happen in Africa, and we don't hear anything about this at all. And just as maybe even more kind of damaging is that when countries are misrepresented in the media, whether that's inaccurate reporting or even worse, when the kind of spread of, or the willful spread of disinformation. So I think right now we need a responsible journalism. The Taiwan-China issue is incredibly complex. It's very nuanced. And we need a Western media and the general public to understand it better. So, which brings me to Korea. So, while Taiwan is becoming a big news story, I think the factors behind this are kind of really multi-layered, and they're really complex. And it's a real privilege to have Chris here today because it's Chris Wang, sorry. He's the editor-in-chief at CNA. And they've been going, it was 100 years you celebrated last month? So, in July. Yeah, so 100 years they've been going. And some stats, 10 million stories, 2 million photos. And they're kind of, one of their mission statements is to try and make Taiwan, or make sure that Taiwan is visible in the international media. CNA is seen as the kind of probably the most trusted news source in Taiwan. And Chris has been a journalist for almost 30 years. He won't like me saying that. 27 years, okay. And he's going to talk a lot about how to read the news. And many of my students, when they start the course, they've little idea how to put how news is put together, or how it's selected, or written, or published. So for me, it's great to have someone like Chris who can share, the kind of wealth of experience about how news is constructed and put together. Another thing that I was kind of passionate about is that we need more diversity and more voices in the news, and that's why it's great to have Andrew Ryan today. He's deputy editor at Taiwan Plus, online TV news website, and if you haven't already, you should really take a look at it. It's for me, it's amazing the kind of variety of content and voices in there is, something that I always aspired to as an editor and a journalist. That this is what news should be, not that we shouldn't be in some kind of ivory tower, and that we just kind of make all this stuff and we expect you to consume it. Actually, inviting people in. I started out at local kind of BBC, and it was really important for us that we used to kind of have the public in all the time, show them what we do, how we put the news together. Even more importantly, we used to kind of get them to tell their stories. And, we always kind of this idea that, everyone's got a story to tell, and that as a journalist, this kind of approach, it showed me the importance and also the power of listening to people. So it's great if you have a look at their website, and it's full of kind of stories. And it's not just journalists saying, this is a story that I own, and it's about a few people. It's actually a lot of people who tell their stories in their own words. Today's third speaker is Billion. I love that name, although Billion Lee. I wish I had a name like that. But she founded Kofax, maybe co-founded Kofax, I think so at the time. Anyway, it's a fact-checking platform based in Taiwan that aims to combat disinformation and promote accurate information. What I love about it, it's a collaborative effort, and it's volunteers. I think what's different about Kofax more than others that I've kind of read about, because of course there are lots of fact-checking websites everywhere, is that it's not only volunteers, they're kind of virtually all volunteers, but it's their use of technology. And I guess she's going to talk a lot about that while we hear a lot of bad rep about AI and stuff like that, I'm sure she's going to talk quite positively in some ways about how it can be used as a force for good. Also got two students, Jennifer and Olu. These remind me of the fact, I guess as a teacher, that I learned just as much from them, from reading academic books or papers or stuff like that. I possibly learn kind of more from them than I teach them. I'm not sure sometimes, but when I started the news literacy course, it was kind of based on Stony Brook model. Stony Brook model was the kind of thing which was leading the way. It was an American university. I think it was an ex-editor from Newsweek. But anyway, all the content you could download, all the stuff, but of course it was Trump, it was American politics, Clinton and stuff like this. And these things just didn't connect with my students. So, whilst we would be looking at kind of ideas of freedom of the press, First Amendment and stuff like this, it didn't really resonate in the same way. So one of the things that we always did is we used to get all the students to do presentations about their own countries. And it was through that and building up that actually, whilst the course originally I kind of created for them, it was actually built by them really, and it's constantly developed by them, and 80 or 90% of the content has actually come from things that they've done and brought to the classes. So it's great today that they're going to, I've been told, okay. Anyway, it's lovely to have you both and see you both. I'm going to miss all this then. Okay. It was quickly to talk a little bit about what I believe is kind of wrong, or a couple of things that are wrong. One is that people feel that the news is not relevant to them. And what I'd like to see is a news with kind of different kinds of content and different kinds of formats. And we need to think, as traditional media, I think here, we need to think of ways which are going to engage people. People simply don't want to pay for news at the moment. I'm not saying that it should be the young generation have to pay. We need to find ways to pay for the news. But even if news is funded, and maybe we get Facebook and Google or governments, whatever, to fund it, we've still got to have young people to engage with it. So we need to think about what kind of products that we want to kind of show them. I know that when I kind of show them traditional news, they're kind of turned off by it. When I show them John Oliver or Jon Stewart stuff, they absolutely love it. And even more importantly, they feel like they understand the issue more after watching it. Secondly, I'm going to be really, really quick, is another thing that I'm passionate about is this kind of what I call solutions-based journalism. And that, once again, people feel that news is too negative, and it's politics, and it's disasters, and it's wars, and stuff like this. And I think one of the problems is that we're so focused on the events. As news writers, we're kind of focused on something bad's happened, what's gone wrong, I need to write a story about that. And then we kind of just forget it. And the event disappears into the distance. I can't hear. The event disappears into the distance. And what I would like to see a little bit more is, what can we do to solve this problem? Yeah? Instead of just writing stories about accidents and people dying on scooters and crashes and stuff like that, why don't we talk to the people who are trying to make the roads safer, or trying to find out how can we make the roads safer in Taiwan, and then turn them into stories? So I'm kind of a big believer in that, that people would be much more engaged with news if we had like kind of solutions-based journalism rather than just focusing on bad things happening. I promise you this is the final bit now. My voice is going anyway. I'm leaving next month. Some of you, or most of you, will kind of know. I'll be back. I'm not going to use an AI Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I will probably be back. Just to let you know, really, that every moment has been amazing, even in half-empty classes. And I'm crying, and I'm thinking, where are they all? And it's, I say, oh, it's raining outside, or maybe there's slow service at the canteen or something. Dampings and Lopogao, whatever it is. But anyway, whatever the reason or the excuse, the truth is I still treasure every moment that we all shared together. With that, thank you. I'm going to hand you back over to MCs. By the way, MCs, I just thought as well, MC is mint and cocoa. But anyway, I hand you back to them, and I shall see you all later for Q&A.
Thank you, Jonathan. Now we would like to invite today's first speaker, Mr. Chris Wang, the editor-in-chief in news department at the Central News Agency, to talk about truth or false, how do we read news. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Wang.
Hello. Good morning, Julian, friends of AIT, and Jonathan, also Andrew Ryan, a good friend of mine, Billion, and everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I know it's never a fun thing for me as a student to have morning sessions, or in the afternoon or night. So. My name is Chris Wang. I'm now the editor-in-chief at CNA. First, let me talk a little bit about CNA. CNA's full name is Central News Agency. It's a weird name. You can find Korean Central News Agency. It's from North Korea. It's called KCNA. So the CNA traces history back into 1924 when it was established in China. And it was basically propaganda organ of the KMT. And it was not until 1996 it becomes a non-profit entity. So the CNA actually had two birthdays, one in 1924 and one in 1996. And half of the CNA's funding came from the government. So that's why some people call us governmental owned, state-owned, or semi-governmental, whatever. But so CNA is basically a wire news service, sort of like AP and Reuters and AFP. Okay, today I'm trying to, consider me a warm-up bed because the heavyweights speak later. First, I want to talk about how do we read news. But I'm very doubtful that we can get to, the high-tech stuff because, AI improves by, if I'm not mistaken, by weeks. So the AI we talked about today probably, is the different thing a week later. I began my career in 1997. I'm first a sports reporter because I'm interested in basketball, NBA, and all of the stuff. And then I cover politics and other stuff. And at first I wrote in Chinese, then I wrote in English. I worked for an English newspaper called Taipei Times for a couple of years. And I worked for a CNA between 2004 to 11. Then I left and returned to CNA in 2017 as a managing editor. And I was promoted to my current position in July last year. So I've served different roles as a writer, reporter, editor, translator, and webmaster. I was an architecture major in college, but I decided that I would never be a very good architect. So I never worked in the architectural field. Today I want to talk about in general how we went from a world where traditional media was king to a time when we have too much information and disinformation and became eventually confused. And we don't even know, it's very difficult for us to know what is true and what is false. So to me, fake news and disinformation and the so-called cognitive warfare are pretty much the same thing. They all try to intentionally mislead the readers into believing something that is not true. And these efforts could be initiated by either individuals or groups or states. Of course, in the case of Taiwan, more often than not, we're talking about China. And it's getting difficult for readers to distinguish true and false and right from wrong. And media, in a certain degree, like you, are the victims of disinformation because, we translate news. We're trying to always be the first one to break the news from news sources. So that's why we fall into the traps of disinformation sometimes. And one classic example of the disinformation, to me, it's the picture you're seeing now, the military dummies in the World War II. The picture in the left is a tank. And the picture on the left is a plane made from bamboo by the Japanese. I believe that's in Okinawa. During the World War II, the Allied forces, Japan and Germany, all used some kind of disinformation to deceive the enemies. And these measures included, of course, these dummies, and also the fake telegrams or codes trying to deceive the enemy, and sometimes their own people, so they can achieve some objectives. I think the internet, like Jonathan said, the internet changed a lot of things, empowers the people, taking away the monopoly of information from the hands of media. So it spreads information much faster than before. And also the emergence of social media then changes the dynamics of information sharing. I believe that content is still king, but in my opinion, but media is no longer the one who dominates the flow of information. I think that most of you, or the young people today, hardly read news, and they prefer to watch John Oliver and also local YouTubers who gave them information rather than the media outlets. So it's now in everyone's hands. And in a time where information and news are free, it's now much more difficult for media outlets to generate profits. And that's also that's also one of the problems media is facing. And for me, the biggest hurdle is the algorithm. Because stats show that most people read news on social media today, and the biggest hurdle for the media is this. In CNA, even if we know the traffics do not generate incomes, we still hope for a lot of page views, right? So that's why we take a lot of time trying to figure out what the algorithm for Google search is, but we're not successful because the page view we've been having these past 2 years plummeted. We simply don't know what the rules are. So our traffic went down, and I can say that the only thing we know is that sensational and negative stuff get a lot more eyeballs than serious and hard news. But that's not what we do in CNA. So this provides those who engage in disinformation campaigns, and cognitive warfare is a place to flourish. I always like to describe the disinformation is like basketball, and because many people ask me how the media and the CNA fight disinformation. My thinking is that we can do that, but we're not going to be always successful because it's like basketball. You have offensive players, and you have the defensive players, and for media, we're on the defensive side, and offense always has an advantage because the offensive players are the one who initiate the contact, initiate the move, so it's always one step faster than the defenders, because if it's not true, the basketball game always ends in 0-0. Nobody will score. So I think that's the hardships and difficulties for media because we're always one step slower than the enemy. I have a video here, but okay, never mind. I was going to show a video of AI-generated speech by Barack Obama. But it didn't come up, so. Oh, really? Oh. Can I play this video? Oh, okay.
对不对？并起磨砂膏，可能是非常的沙粒，锻炼水嫩牛奶肌。
It got me thinking about my full-time employees, and they're building to survive on $8 an hour in New York City. Foremost in all of our minds has been the loss, the grief, felt by the people who are around. Most of us don't get our phone to the marketplace. We do our job, working at your benefit. And what you should know is that thanks to the Affordable Care Act, your coverage gets
Okay. It said that BBC people use 14 hours of Obama's speech to generate this video, and I believe they can only use the 14 minutes of Obama's speech to generate the same stuff right now. So that's how the AI technology has been advancing. And I was also told that people will now, they can only use maybe 5 seconds of your voice to generate, a speech from you. And this is what we face every day in the newsroom, because it's obviously it's a lot easier than making fake videos. It's AI-generated fake news photos. The photo on the left is from Japanese media, but you can see the strange lines appearing on the photo, so that's fake. And for the photos on the right, it's from a news stories about the earthquake we have last month in April the 3rd. So that's basically fake. I think fighting disinformation, the important thing is that in terms of policy and regulation, we're always, like I said, one step behind. So we can keep up with the initiators. So that's why we're here today. We're talking about media literacy, and that means you and the readers. So what should we do? In the newsroom, we're always trying to carefully select our news sources, because we're doing translation. We're doing translation, and we also report news. So we always ask ourselves, is it a credible news outlet? Is the commentator a credible individual or expert? Does he or she has the authority to speak on the matter? That's basically journalism 101. And does the commentator represent specific interest or point of view? So that's the first thing we need to ask ourselves. And second, we need to question almost everyone and everything. And number three, we need to use our common sense, because don't believe everything you see. Sometimes you need to most of the time you need to think about it. Number four, find multiple sources. And number five, think before retweeting or posting. And the next stage, I believe we're going to fight with AI with AI. But a lot of media outlets are not that tech savvy. So, for example, we're now basically manually doing fact check. But AI obviously can help us a lot with that. And before that happens, I think we're on our own. And thank you for your attention. I believe we can talk a lot more about journalism in Taiwan, specifically in general, in later discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Now we would like to invite today's second speaker, Mr. Andrew Ryan, Deputy Director in the News Department at Taiwan Plus, to talk about truth in the age of AI. Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Ryan.
Good morning. Everybody still awake? I think you should be, because he's an excellent speaker. My name is Andrew Ryan. I'm the Deputy Director of News for Taiwan Plus. And I'm actually very excited to be here, because I taught radio here at Ming Chuan University for 6 years. So I have a soft spot in my heart for Ming Chuan University. I'm also a big fan of our speakers here today. Chris and I used to work together. Of course, Chris, as you know, works at the oldest media organization in Taiwan, the Central News Agency. I actually work for the youngest public media in Taiwan, Taiwan Plus, but he actually was my boss for the first year at Taiwan Plus because Taiwan Plus was under the CNA for its first year in existence. So we actually share a lot in common. And I'm delighted to hear him say Journalism 101 because we used to talk about this all the time when we were defending Taiwan Plus from all sorts of criticism about us being a mouthpiece of the Taiwan government, which we are not. And I'm happy to talk about that more later on if you're interested. So it's a real pleasure to be here today to talk about artificial intelligence. I also want to thank Ming, Chuan, and AIT for inviting me. By inviting me here today, that's forced me to think a lot about artificial intelligence, generative AI, and how we use it and how we should use it at Taiwan Plus. And in fact, it has spurred us on to create some guidelines for our reporters, which I'm going to share with you later in my speech. So this is hot off the press, is this new set of guidelines. So I think that this is actually great for Taiwan Plus as well. I will say I'm not an expert at AI. I know how to use it, and I've used it before. I did not write this speech with AI. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to have mentioned Journalism 101. I didn't know that Chris would mention that. Of course, that's not something I generated with AI. But I have been thinking about AI pretty much nonstop since ChatGPT emerged, I guess, in 2022. So I want to start off by telling you a little bit about Taiwan Plus. I'm going to tell you how we use AI. So this is going to leave me very vulnerable to all sorts of questions, which is fine. And then I'm going to tell you the things that keep me up late at night, thinking about AI and the future of AI. And then I'm going to tell you how we remain trustworthy and keep your trust as viewers in the age of AI. Can I start off by asking how many people have heard of Taiwan Plus before? Oh, good. Good. Okay, so for those of you who haven't heard of Taiwan Plus, I'm going to play a little video to introduce our news department. When I joined in 2021, there were only about 25 people at Taiwan Plus. Today, there's over 200. The news team has grown from about 10 people when I joined to now 65. So all of my comments, my remarks today are about the news center, the newsroom, and how we use AI. The rest of the organization does use AI a little bit as well, but I won't be talking about that today. I'll be talking about the news angle. So here's an introduction to Taiwan Plus News.
In the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A roadmap for a just and open world. Charted by the freest country in Asia.
5, 4, 3, 2.
A warm welcome to Taiwan Plus News. I'm Ming. Taiwanese semiconductor giant TSMC.
A mission that begins with listening.
And telling the stories of Taiwan.
In Taipei for Taiwan Plus.
Drawing insight from original thinkers.
And sharing it with the world. Taiwan Plus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
Okay, so Taiwan Plus, as I mentioned, was founded in August of 2021. And that's when we started broadcasting live news on television. About a month and a half earlier, I did not know we would be doing live news on television. So it was a very exciting first month and a half for us. At that point, when we were founded, people were already using artificial intelligence. We just didn't really focus on the fact that we were using artificial intelligence. Everybody used Google Translate, people used Siri, people used Alexa. It was all around us, but it wasn't until the following year when ChatGPT emerged that we all started talking about generative AI. Interestingly enough, on October 3rd, 2022, we launched a 24-hour news channel. So you can see things are speeding up very quickly. And that was 1 month before ChatGPT came out. So that came out in November of 2022. So essentially, you could say that Taiwan Plus has grown up in the era of artificial intelligence. And that's had an impact on who we are as an organization in much the same way that the pandemic had an impact on who we are as an organization. From the very beginning, we did online meetings, did video meetings. We still do that every day. We also use the same technology to interview people in the same way that many news organizations do. This is the first and only known use of AI to write a script, to my knowledge. Have a look at this. This is from February of 2022. Sorry, 23, last year. Okay, so have a look at this and listen very carefully to what she says in the introduction to this story.
Create its own version of ChatGPT, an AI tool that helps chatbots talk to people in a more natural way. By doing this, Taiwan hopes to rely less on technology from other countries and build up its own AI industry. Today, we have Yashi Jiang, an associate professor at National Taiwan Ocean University who specializes in IP laws and tech laws, to discuss this plan and what it means for Taiwan's tech sector. This intro, by the way, was written by ChatGPT.
Okay. So she says very clearly there, this intro was written by ChatGPT. Again, to my knowledge, that is the only time that we have used ChatGPT to actually write a piece of script that has gone on air. Now, interestingly, the Associated Press last month came out with a fantastic report. They talked to 292 people in the news industry and asked them how they want to use AI and how they do use AI, generative AI, in their newsrooms. And this is a fantastic report. It's available for free online. I would highly recommend it if you're interested in how newsrooms use generative AI. And in that report, they asked all of these news professionals, and these are news professionals from all around the world. 60% were in North America, but there were other people from Asia, Africa, the Caribbean, etc. What tasks have you or your organization used generative AI for on an experimental or regular basis? And here's how people responded. So the first one, content production, text, that's using something like ChatGPT to actually write an article. And again, we've only done this once to my knowledge, but I'll talk about that later. Information gathering and sense making, so basically inputting an article into ChatGPT, asking for it to analyze it or give you the main points. So it's doing research. Content production, multimedia, that's using AI-created images or video or sounds. Business, that's a different department, so I'm not going to talk about that. Translation, we use this every day. This is one of the main uses of AI in the Taiwan Plus newsroom, but with the caveat that you must check the translation. Never trust AI translations. Actually, never trust AI, period. Working with data, we've used this before, and I can talk about that later if you're interested, but very few cases of having used it this way. Transcription, this is the other main way that we use ChatGPT, or sorry, not ChatGPT, we use generative AI to do transcription, and it saves us a ton of time, and it's actually very, quite accurate. Coding, content production, user experience, these are things that we don't do. So this is a software called Sonics. This saves us a ton of time. We can put a video, upload a video into it, and it gives us a transcription or a translation. The translation isn't super accurate. Again, never trust a translation from generative AI. The transcription is very good, but we also double check those as well. But what it enables us to do is very quickly look through a script and choose the parts we want and edit it. And the video is attached to the script. So you can click on the script and it will go to that place in the video, and vice versa. So those are just a couple of things that we do with generative AI in the Taiwan Plus newsroom. I want to talk about the things that keep me up late at night. What do I worry about when it comes to generative AI? So accuracy, of course. Everybody knows that you shouldn't trust the information that you see on generative AI. Bias. Generative AI, the way it works is it's trained to give responses, and if it's trained with bias, it's going to, if it's ingests bias, it's going to output bias. A very clear example of that is if, I don't know if anybody has used Google Translate to translate an article about Taiwan. A lot of times they say 我国, like our country, and it will translate it as China. So if it's used to translating it that way, that's how it's going to translate it. That's why also Taiwan is developing its own generative AI. Copyright, it could be grabbing articles from copyrighted sources and then make us vulnerable as an organization if somebody cuts and pastes that copyrighted material directly into a script. That's why we don't allow it. Distrust. If you get a lot of things wrong, then people stop trusting the media. Efficiency. I'm not sure that it's as efficient as we think it is. In order for it to be efficient, you have to train your employees. And as a very young organization, you know, we don't have the bandwidth necessarily to train everybody fully in the use of AI. And any time that you spend training your employees is time that you're not doing journalism. That doesn't mean I don't believe in training, I do. Ethics, there are ethical concerns about AI. The ecological and environmental impact of using generative AI is something that a lot of people don't really discuss. Also, the relationship between tech companies and media. There's a huge imbalance where a lot of media organizations are overly reliant on tech companies, which then have a say in their editorial standpoint. Training, not enough time. Jobs, could take our jobs. I don't worry too much about this one yet, but I will eventually. The brand, could it hurt our brand? As a public media organization, it's really important that we have a high bar when it comes to ethics in journalism. We don't have to make money, fortunately, but we do have to answer to taxpayers who pay our bills. And then competition. I know of a news organization in Taiwan, a TV news organization in Taiwan, that will take a story, feed it into generative AI, and then spit out 5 different versions of the same story. That means that they're getting 6 stories for the price of 1. And if we don't do that, that means that our news will be lost in the flood that is the social media ecosystem. So these are things that I worry about. So what are some strategies for ethical use of generative AI? How do you use it ethically? Here's how the respondents in the AP report responded. The #1 response was not using generative AI. 20% of the people said that. I don't think that's an option. Verifying the output, that's an absolute must. I'm going to skip through some of these. Adhering to journalistic values, of course, like Chris says, journalism 101. Limit the use. I think it's important to tell people how you should use it or should not use it. The clearer that we can be, the better. Although it's very difficult to be super clear on generative AI because it's changing so quickly, and you don't want to prevent people from experimenting with it and seeing how it works for your newsroom. So that leads me to our guidelines. If you're interested in reading the full guidelines, you can go to our website, to the press section. This is the second time that we have posted our guidelines for reporting. The first time that we did it was for the elections because there was a lot of concern about disinformation with Taiwan's elections in January. And we wanted to make sure to get ahead of it and explain very clearly to people how we report on the elections. so that people understand what our position is. So these are the guidelines. I'm not going to read them all out to you, but I want to give you 4 main points that I feel very strongly about. And I also want to mention that this was a bottom-up decision to create these guidelines. So it was initiated by, not by management, but by somebody who works in the newsroom, and then it came up to management. And everybody, to my knowledge, is completely on board with these guidelines. So all journalists must undergo basic generative AI training. We've started to do training. More than half of the people in our newsroom have been trained, have gotten a basic course in generative AI. It's forbidden to use generative AI to write reports. This is really key for us right now. We will not use this technology to write reports. We treat generative AI like an unverified source. It's almost like somebody whispering in your ear, did you hear about this? You have to look it up. You have to get 1 or 2, you have to get at least 1, but preferably 2 trusted sources to tell you that information. And then the final thing, if we feature content created by generative AI, we must make that clear to viewers. So that's why I played that video where the anchor talks about the fact that the script was written by AI. If we use images, I've asked our videographers, to date we have not used images that were created by generative AI. If we were to do that, we would definitely make it clear within the piece. So I want to talk a little bit about how we maintain trust in the age of AI. What are some things that newsrooms can do to remain trustworthy as we're facing this major disruption? So for us, we have multiple layers of approval before a story can hit the air. And I think that this is actually a more rigorous approval process than you'll find at most newsrooms. On the left there, you can see the status of stories. These are all stories, by the way. So different stories. These are stories that we did yesterday. Each one of these lines is a story. You can click into it and find all the information about the story, including the script, inside that story card. There are different statuses. So you can see on the left there, scripting needed, subbing needed. That's sub-editing. That's the first layer of editing of a script. We have approval needed, so that's the second layer of editing of a script. So 2 copy editors look at every script that we put out in the newsroom at Taiwan Plus. Some people think it's a little extra, but I'm cool with that. And you'll see down here too, video edit needed, so that's when the videographer starts editing the video for the story. So they also look at it and look through the script and look at the images. And then the final layer of approval is down here where it says video approved. That means that when this video has been cut, then a copy editor and the reporter will sit next to the videographer and watch the entire piece before it goes to air. I've never heard of an organization being this rigorous with the videos they create, but I'm incredibly proud of this, and I think that it makes us trustworthy in a way that lots of newsrooms are not. So you can see here in this column here, progress bar, I say you have to get a perfect 10 before you can go to air. So it starts off with a very faint green 1, and as it goes through the 10 steps and hits a 10, then it's ready to air. And that's what we're looking for, straight 10s. Another thing that we do is we have reporters, real people on location telling stories. Taiwan Plus, as of January 12th, the night before the elections, has started doing live crosses where reporters will appear on TV live. The next day, on January 13th, we had 18 live crosses. So it's our commitment to making sure that people can hear the story from people on the ground. We've also sent people around the world. This is Sally. She's in Paraguay. This is Leslie Liao, one of our reporters in New York City. So far, we've sent people on more than 24 trips overseas to all sorts of places around the world where news is happening. We've even sent somebody into Ukraine for 10 days after giving them hostile environment training. And then we have what are called bites, sound bites. These are interviews with experts, people who know something about a topic that the viewers don't know about. This is one of my favorite interviews that I've done with a salt worker in a salt field in Tainan, speaking in Taiwanese. Perspective that you don't usually find in the international media or even the local media necessarily. This is our live election show from January 13th. As I mentioned, we had 3 reporters, one each at each of the main presidential campaign headquarters, doing 2 live crosses each hour for 3 hours. So that's 18 live crosses. You'll notice the numbers on the right-hand side. A lot of news media in Taiwan will, I don't know if they use generative AI, but they definitely use some interesting ways of making those numbers go up faster than they should. And we don't do that. So you might think our numbers are a little bit slow. That's because we use the official election results rather than using generative AI or other forms of playing with the numbers. And then finally, and this is one of my favorite things, my favorite ways to make our news trustworthy is that we go out and do what are called vox pops. Vox populi, the voice of the people. And that's basically what we call person on the street interviews. So we ask people what their opinions are, and you don't have to be somebody who is an expert in that area. You just have to be a person with an opinion. And that gives people who watch our shows an understanding of what people in Taiwan think about different stories. So rather than us telling you a lot of people in Taiwan think this, we actually have people say it themselves. And for us, it's really important to get a good mixture of male, female, of young and old, and from different places in Taiwan. So you can see these are some of our election vox pops where we ask people what they thought about the elections. And we have people in Taipei, not just Taipei, but also in Tainan, Kaohsiung, Jinmen. We even sent people to outlying islands. So it's really important for us to be able to do that and to be able to represent the true voice of the people of Taiwan. So thank you so much, and I look forward to more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Now we would like to invite today's third speaker, Ms. Binlian Lee, the co-founder of COFAC, to talk about civic empowerment on media literacy. Please give a round of applause for Ms. Lee.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. It's Billion. Today, I would like to talk about how COFAC to do some CV technology engagement with audiences. I launched COFAC with my partner, Johnson, in 2016. So dating back to 8 years ago, during that time, COFAC is a small project in Gaba Zero community. Gaba Zero is a civic technology community. Actually, last weekend, they do have the Gaba Zero Summit. I held quite a lot of the session, and we talk about how technology can do for social good. In 2016, quite a lot of disinformation is regarding marriage equality. They say same-sex marriage might make Taiwan as an AIDS island. Oh, the younger generation might get pregnant, and younger female, younger girls, you will reject being pregnant because you will all become lesbian. Those kind of disinformation is ridiculous because actually that is a conflict between different kinds of generation, different kinds of ages, even different kinds of genders. And so people might say disinformation, homosexual people will get into Taiwan and marry a Taiwanese guy to reach Taiwanese free medical care. However, in 2018, those kind of disinformation also happened on local election. Some radical party, they also connected with some conservative churches. And also some disinformation, they say, generated in some USA really conservative churches and got translated in Hong Kong, then got forwarded in Taiwan. Our objective might be we want to develop a technology tool fighting against disinformation. Once you feel disinformation inside your closing chat room, or you feel suspicious, you feel skeptical, you can forward your disinformation to the chatbot, and your chatbot will reply with you the factual report and tell the reason why and the references. What do? Follow the Government Zero community's the value. Our project needs to be open source. So that means all the source code is uploaded on GitHub platform. That means you can also use our source code and make your own version in your laptop. And also provide open data. Since we do collect quite a lot of data over around 8 years, so actually we do have accumulated over 100,000 different kinds of disinformation inside our database. Scholars, think tanks, students actually rely on those kind of data to conduct some important report regarding disinformation as well. And also provide innovation inside this technology community. We do have different kind of engineers, data scientists, and also some civic hackers like you. And we also have some students, contributors inside our whole community. Free and openness, I think that's the reason why we're trying to engage with different kind of people. Apart from some traditional newsroom or journalists, we're trying to use a new way as a grassroots site, trying to motivate people doing something as their own. And also, with that kind of like, we ask for them not to use that much time. So less time, that means we do have like few lower human resource consuming, and also we much more rely on the internet. So that means we don't need to be limited in our location. Our fact checkers, our contributor doesn't need to stay in Taipei. They can be in Hainan, they can be in Kaohsiung. Also, they can be in USA or in another country. Third, since that is open source, so actually, even though we got attacked, even though we are not capable to provide this environment, someone can just carry on. The method is quite easy. You forward this information to the chatbot, and so you can see the auto reply chatbot. The chatbot will connect with the message and the reply. And after the platform, we do have a lot of fact checkers. They might log in every day to provide fact check among the fact check platform. Also, we might provide different kind of update. People can also use feedback to evaluate if the fact check is compliant or not. For example, people might ask, how do you make sure that your fact check is compliant or not? So we say we provide feedback system. If you think that this information hasn't been verified in a compliant way, then you can appeal those kind. You can also report those kind of like not that compliant fact check. Then other fact checker might also review it and also do some editing, do some revision among those kind of not that compliant fact check. And also, since we do have a lot of users, user spaces, once there is some malicious users, like someone who has like up to no go, they would like to provide some false content inside this platform. Actually, since it's openness and transparency, those kind of malicious reaction can be seen and can be monitored in a really rigorous way. Besides the technology side, we also engage with like physical and real interaction with different kind of groups. Younger generation, teenagers, we also get into the campuses, not only the senior high school, but also college students. And also, I also get engaged with some elder community, like some community center, religious group. I also got, I enjoy vegetarian food with Buddhist community, but also go to pray and sing songs with some churches and Christians people, not only in Taipei, but also in Tainan. Also in eastern side, I'm from Yilan, which is super countryside, so nobody speaks Mandarin or Chinese in my district. And we use different kind of language in Taiwanese. And normally people might think of, how do you deal with disinformation? We will say, yes, we might provide some innovation-wise technology side. We use Line platform to provide those fact-check reports because actually Line covers over 95% of Taiwanese market. So actually, that is our way to get engaged with some what we so-called like elder, like normally over 55, over 60, my parents' ages. They use Line every day. Line just like their Slack, their Viber, their Discord. During this this kind of engagement, what motivates is how do we talk to people? How do we communicate with people? Like journalists, how do you like influence someone? How do you communicate with some other friends? In this project, I noticed media literacy, digital literacy. Even we all think of media literacy is quite important. Somebody just rely on those fake news. In 2016, people also watch news. People also watch content on some Chinese forum, content forum. They don't have author. They don't have some journalists. They don't have reporters. But they consume the content every day. Those kind of content, they just like copycat. They just fabricate it. They just copy and paste some others' content or articles on the internet. Since those kind of content is not trustworthy, we want to build a real engagement. And actually, technology tool is just only one tool. How do we communicate with some elders? Actually, based on our statistic, we will show some this is over down here. Actually, we do have like open analytics. And those kind of analytics might show the graphic, might show the trend, show the peg. For example, right before election, you might see there's around 40% increasing around disinformation. However, the real engagement much more like how do we win the trust from the people. So we try to speak their languages. In Taiwan, not only people speak Mandarin, but we also have some indigenous language. We also have like migration workers. So people, like Vietnamese, Indonesia, we do have a lot of like new generation. Actually, what we're trying to do is engage with different kind of people. So that's the reason why we choose crowdsource. We choose open source intelligence, OSINT. We provide all the content on the internet. And also we provide bilingual language on the platform because we think of not only Mandarin speaking people might suffering from disinformation, English speaking people, and indigenous people and different kind of like community. If people don't do that, some people might do. For example, as 2024 might be election year, quite a lot of disinformation and fabricated content like this is Hillary Clinton. Just like the former video, like Barack Obama won. Donald Trump, they also like imitate like synthetic, use different kind of fabricated mouth, face, expression to see like China might surely smack US ass. Also, some other like fiction novels like Taiwan's Secret Story. Even this picture is also generated by generative AI. You can see the faces and the lines and the shape. This kind of free ebook trying to provide a content, provide a story that is influence in somebody's decision among the public. For example, even like 10 years ago, that's quite trendy. Also say, Taiwan got abortion for Li Denghui, the former president. So that's the reason why Li Denghui would like to support Taiwan to get to the position of the elected president. Even right after the election, there are also some like fabricated content, also generated by generative AI. They say the Xi Jinping also congratulate wouldn't lie. In this election, you can see around like we do observe like three major topics. First, domestic issue, like Taipei 2019. During that time, because of free trade and fair trade, the dopamine issue still can be really trendy in this year. They say USA would like to harm Taiwanese body. They would like to make Taiwanese people afford those kind of some poor they don't want to eat. Food shortage, egg shortage, electricity shortage. Domestic issue showing the politician, the politics and the ruling party cannot protect your life. Not only Taiwanese, but also the foreigners relocated in Taiwan. Second, the scandal from the politician, like the former Taiwan's secret history, is one of the cases. to make Taiwanese people, or to make some voters, I won't say Taiwanese people, to make voters think of what public affairs is, what democracy is, or what diplomatic issue is quite difficult. However, to make them think some politician is not trustworthy, some politician has some issue among integrity, they might have an affair, they might have scandal, they might have their players, they are mean to their employees. There can be some issues to think of. Some politician is not trustworthy, so don't vote for them. And it's quite easy to influence the decision right before election. That's the reason why even like every election among Taiwan, scandals and integrity and the background from the politician can works really well to influence the voters' decision. The third one, especially in this, also after 2022, might be the warfare issue, because the war between Ukraine and Russian Federation. Last year, even in Slovakia, in EU countries, in Slovakia, actually, the pro-Russian Federation party won the election. And also in Taiwan, that is some experience from my co-fest. Even in this election in Taiwan, also 2 years ago, the local election in Taiwan, quite a lot of the advertisement in Taipei City, on buses, on taxi, only if you vote for a specific party, you might vote for the peace. Otherwise, you might vote for the war. To make people think of if you vote for the peace, if you vote for the war, and some quite easy statement to influence the decision. Like, you might send your younger generation to the front line. You might send your kids to the front line. Those kind of threats, those kind of talk might influence Taiwanese people, or especially the elders, have them fear to mislead those kind of real policy. What we're trying to do is use technology. So far, we do have several kinds of experience. Like, we do have an AI classifier. You can do AI categorization. So like journalists, they can specifically focus on specific topic, like Chinese propaganda, like energy, like food safety. Also, we provide local record. For example, my parents, they don't have the really great memory, so they can just still review or maybe recheck some disinformation that has been fact-checked or verified before. Also, we rely on feedback. That's how we evaluate if the fact check is compliant or not. We rely on technology. However, we still need to be really conscious if the technology might have bias, especially like AI. Recently, we also have some like not only AI classifier, but also AI pre-bunking inside our system. So that's the reason why we quite rely on the feedback and review from the real human being. We also have notification, some small feature inside the whole platform, so they make everyone can receive notification if they want to receive the disinformation that hasn't been fact-checked before, but now they do have to provide the factual report. Also, they can subscribe the fact-check, they can subscribe the disinformation, especially in some specific topic. We provide all the statistics and analytics to our audiences. So that means even though they don't know the trend, they don't know what's popular recently, they can still receive some content and importance from the whole system. Also, provide gamification. As you know, actually, COVID is a volunteer-oriented project. So how do we motivate some other people to do the fact check? Actually, we use gamification. That means if you do a lot of fact check, you might get level up, you can get special badges, you got compliment from me, from every week. How we motivate people, how we motivate volunteer. Yes, I understand Taiwan do have some war and survival issue, but still, how do we connect with people? How do we engage with people? It's use gamification and like real interaction and communication. We also provide multimedia fact check, so that means not only images, video, and audio can be fact checked inside the system. We provide technology support because we do have data scientists and engineer. We do have a lot of like, global partners around the world, like in USA, in Thailand, in Malaysia, in Japan, in France. Since source code can be another language, not only Mandarin or English, they use like React.js, Node.js. In our system, we use Elasticsearch. So as long as you work fact-check chatbot, we might support technology consultant hours. We also have a quite large database. That's how we review the history, how we review all the content and all the system inside the whole project. All the source code and all the open data could be downloaded on the CSV file type. And those kind of graphics, those kind of visualization can be shared among not only Taiwanese itself, we do have some other global partners. The blue lines means the website page view, and the yellow line means the chatbot line platform click. And also, like last week, Thailand Code5 team, the VC Taiwan as well. We share the same. We share some panel and session. Since we do, that's an example how we share a source code. Since we share a source code, so actually Thailand can use our source code, make a Thai version in their country. I think that's a quite good way to share what openness and what community can do. As I mentioned, civic empowerment, civic engagement is a way to get engaged with people. In Thailand, they also have some team like Open Dream, some other foundation like FNF to support Thai Code5 team to launch things like you can see the besides the color and also over the format of the website. Also, we share all the open data so you can see the collaborators' behavior and also the users' behavior among the website. We do provide bilingual toolkit, Mandarin, English. So that's the reason why we share all our design thinking among the whole project. Code5 chatbot itself speaks 5 languages: Mandarin, English, Thai, Korean, and Japanese. For the upcoming generation, we believe that kind of collaboration and sharing and data providing can be an effective way to get engaged with people. So you can see that the old source code under MIT licenses, also the database, API, under CCBY SI licenses. This is the last slide. You can feel free to contact me if you want to, bill@codefast.tw. Actually, our Code5 has an S. S means plurality. Collaborative fact-checking. S means plurality. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. And now we're having 5 minutes break. The second half conference will be starting after that. Excuse me, the second half of the panel is going to start. Please take your seat. Our panel is going to begin. Real knowledge rests upon a plurality of approaches and perspective of view. Along with our panelists, we also invited two of our JMC graduating senior students to share their ideas and insights into today's event's themes. Miss Jennifer Aurelia from Indonesia is going to talk about cake or fake, slicing through the truth in the age of AI. Please give a round of applause for Miss Aurelia.
Okay, so as we all are aware, we live in a digital world where reality can be as deceptive as beautifully crafted cakes like these ones, right? But how do we actually make sure that what we see and what we hear and what we experience is really the truth? Just like these cleverly disguised cakes, the digital world that we inhabit right now is packed with content that may appear to be authentic, but it's actually ingeniously constructed fakes, right? Although AI makes information cheaper, faster, and easier to obtain, the gap only continues to grow as algorithmic robots, like mentioned before, are starting to replace us humans in our own world, right? This means being a smart audience in the age of AI is really crucial because AI technologies increasingly shape our daily lives, influencing the information that we consume every day. Like these ones. Is this a cake or it's a fake, right? You'll never know until you slice it. And we all consume AI daily. We use ChatGPT, aka Google's replacement, and Siri. It's on your phone. Every Apple user's best friend, and Google Maps, right? You'll never get lost with these apps. And there are also numerous movies already talking about AI since years ago, such as The Matrix, Ex Machina, Terminator, my favorite, and you name it. And these movies explore AI implications both negatively and positively. So utilizing AI in this age while ensuring we aren't used by it is really crucial for maintaining control and ethical standards. And my name is Jennifer, I'm from Indonesia, and today let's delve into some strategies and examples from my home country. Here is my President Joko Widodo, President of Indonesia. As a proud Indonesian citizen, I'm well aware that my president's background is indeed proletarian, meaning that he did not go to a fancy international school, he didn't even get English language education, or even study abroad. Meaning that he is more comfortable, obviously, speaking in Indonesian rather than in English. But to our surprise, this video of him delivering a speech in fluent Chinese went viral on social media. But the real question is, can he really speak Chinese? There's only one way to find out.
我曾经是一个商人，22年之久。我不信填表，觉得麻烦浪费时间。我不喜欢事情变得更加复杂。我喜欢事情简单而且高效。我不喜欢被欺负，希望公平对待。我坚持原则，反对欺凌和不公。平等和尊严是我追求的目标，期望公正待遇。7周前，我建立了一个庞大的茶叶管理社群，致力于促进行业发展，提供交流和经验分享平台，吸引热爱茶叶的人参与。我们现在正在进行第5个茶叶监管方案。并且正在准备第6个监管方案。
Okay, well, that was amazing, right? I studied Chinese for, almost 5 years and can't be as fluent as him. And the Ministry of Communication and Information in Indonesia confirmed that this was a misleading content produced by AI, meaning that this is a deepfake, a product of deepfakes, right? Deepfakes are manipulated videos or images created using AI to make it appear as though someone is doing something that they're not. And in reality, my President Joko Widodo, did the speech in English. Take a look at this one.
A week ago, I launched a very large and very serious deregulation drive. We are now on the regulation package number 5.
It's really amazing what AI can do in our lives, right? It can manipulate even a president's speech. But what people don't realize these days is how dangerous deepfakes can be, right? With the advent of AI, the boundaries between reality and illusions are starting to blur, right? It is often overlooked and underestimated because people consume these kinds of contents daily just for laughs. So people did take deepfakes unseriously. And like Mr. Wang previously said, deepfakes can carry significant potential for harm, especially when used maliciously or without consent. I also quote from Obama, let's see how dangerous deepfake can be.
An era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time, even if they would never say those things. So, for instance, they could have me say things like, I don't know, Killmonger was right, or Ben Carson is in the sunken place, or how about this? Simply, President Trump is a total and complete dipshit.
Okay, let's stop it from there. Let's stop it from there. And like what Mr. Wan previously said, it's really dangerous. It could lead to a total disruption of the country. And deepfakes can be used to spread false information, manipulate public opinion, create fake explicit contents like this ones. And of course, it will lead to privacy violations, harassment, and reputational damage. And coming from a big country like Indonesia, imagine a scenario where a deepfake video is created to depict a prominent image, such as our president, making controversial statements. And when those kinds of videos circulate online, it could really influence public opinion, sway voter sentiment, like Ms. Billion said, and even disrupt our country's democratic process. So it's really important for us to know how dangerous deepfakes can be, even though we laugh at it every time we see stuff like this. And resolving the disinformation, the Ministry of Communication and Information of Indonesia took actions by posting these disinformation on their official's website. So we have a website specifically made to post disinformations, warning Indonesians or audience to be cautious while receiving information that may be manipulated, as we should only refer to reliable sources, such as the government official websites or credible media outlets. Now, the main goal that we are gathered here right now is to learn how to be a smart audience in the age of AI, right? Being a smart consumer of AI means that making simple, informed decisions can protect us from misleading AI usage in daily life. And also, we need to possess knowledge and awareness. It's very necessary to engage with AI technologies effectively and responsibly. And also, maintaining control and ethical standards in the age of AI means that we all have to be aware of bias, fairness, and privacy concerns associated with AI systems, while also developing critical thinking skills and also understanding of how AI impacts various aspects of our lives. So like this program today is very helpful, it's very useful for us. It's an eye-opening program that is really helpful for all students and audience watching online maybe to be aware of what is coming to our future. And what should we actually do, right? The first one is we stop being a passive consumer and start being attentive. I have a confession to make. My screen time average weekly is 7 hours, meaning that I spend most of my time being online, right? And in a world that is shaped by AI, it's time for us to reclaim our role as active participants rather than passive consumers. By actively creating your feed, maybe on Facebook, maybe on Instagram, you can unfollow or even mute accounts, report accounts that promotes misinformation or negativity. And then the second one, you should always check your privacy settings, like Professor Roberto always mentioned in his classes. We should always understand the privacy implications that these AI websites, these AI technology, AI applications that we use daily, and we should always be mindful of the data that we share online. Being aware of how AI technologies collect, use, and potentially misuse our personal data empowers you to make informed decisions, right, about privacy settings and data sharing practices. So we should always review privacy settings, limit data sharing, and consider the trade-offs between convenience and privacy. I have 2 examples of softwares you can use for your PC. It is recommended by Professor Roberto. The first one is CCleaner, and the second one is uBlock Origin. So you can use these kinds of software, cleaning softwares, to prevent AI websites, AI technologies from gathering your data and obviously misuse it. And then last but not least, we have to admit, we love to shop online, right? So we have to shop smart and be careful of impulse purchases. caused by the power of search engines, aka AI recommendations. So we should always research and compare prices and read reviews before deciding. So let us remain mindful in the potential pitfalls that the AI technology can do to us, and let's be a more smarter citizen in this age. Thank you guys for having me. I hope this is useful for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Aurelia. Last but not least, Miss Dawn from Palau, our JMC graduating senior student, is going to share a perspective from her own country. The topic is Empowering Palau, Harnessing Media Literacy to Combat Disinformation. Please give a round of applause for Miss Dawn.
Ali, hello. So, good morning, everybody. My name is Dawn Olu Aluluk, and I am from Palau and currently a senior here at Ming Chuan, studying journalism and mass communication. And today, I'm very excited to discuss the importance of media literacy and its significance, but in a more Palauan context, even though my heart is beating incredibly fast right now. But Palau, like many nations, faces its own unique challenges in its media landscape, and navigating these challenges requires a lot of effort. You guys would really know. So, especially towards promoting critical thinking and even just responsible media consumption, whether it's through traditional media outlets or social media platforms. So just a short introduction. Speaking of social media platforms, I have a very vivid memory of my first encounter with a social media platform, which was Facebook during my time. I'm very young. So I remember being in the 4th grade and my parents allowing me to have a Facebook profile. And to think about it today, it's incredibly insane because we know that a lot of parents today would not allow their kids at that age to have social media platforms, especially like Facebook and Instagram and all of that. So, but during the time, Facebook was kind of like a new wave of media and a new wave of digital technology. So we were very excited to engage without knowing the consequences of it. But today, older generations in Palau are on Facebook especially, more than people my age. People my age have moved towards Instagram and TikTok and all of that. And you can tell that a lot of the older generations in Palau really rely on Facebook as a source of information and news, whether they know it's real or fake. So that's why it's very important to understand the importance of media literacy and the relationship between media literacy and disinformation. And like reading or solving a math equation, media literacy is learned. And the ability to navigate within our complex media landscape and forever changing media landscape, it depends on acquiring skills and tools to know how to consume and evaluate information. Ask critical questions, but also apply critical thinking skills. Avoid manipulation such as disinformation, misinformation, fake news. But it's a way to engage in digital spaces safely and confidently. But unfortunately, in my country, media literacy is not talked about when it's supposed to be. It's just a surface topic that people just have like a surface understanding of, but it never really gets into depth about what media literacy is and how important it is, especially in a country such as Palau, a very small nation with 18,000 people. So in a Palauan context, limited media landscape, Palau has a relatively small media landscape, with only a handful of traditional media outlets. This could mean that Palauans primarily rely on a small number of sources for news and information, and it really increases the risk of miscommunication and discommunication and being manipulated into that. And so how can we expect ourselves to be able to decipher between fake news and real news of external sources if we can't even do it in our own country with our own sources, our domestic sources? And that leads to a growing digital presence. So with a very limited media landscape, the growing digital presence, especially in the youth, is growing. And the older generations are learning it too. But then even the youth, the younger generations are obviously very tech savvy and they learn it really fast, but that doesn't mean that they understand how to avoid disinformation, misinformation. The next is vulnerability to external influence. Being a small nation, Palau is particularly vulnerable to external influence, including disinformation campaigns and from foreign sources, of course. But media literacy efforts should address not only domestic sources of real news, but like misinformation, but also external factors that may impact Palauan society. And of course, me being me, I try to solve that problem, and I've only come up with a very, very rough draft of strategies that I think could apply to Palau. And of course, it involves planning and assessment, conducting more comprehensive assessment of the current state of media literacy in Palau. But now in a more cultural aspect, Palauans tend to rely on sources that they trust because it's such a small country. The original way of storytelling was by word of mouth. So we didn't have sources to rely on, but we relied on people that we were close with, our families, our friends, now Facebook pages, these Palau forums and stuff like that. But then I think it's very important to understand how important media literacy is in terms of that, which is why I've considered these strategies: planning and assessment, government support, educational initiatives, public awareness campaigns. With government support, it's really important because we need a lot of funding for media literacy training for trainers and young people too. It's very important to first train the trainers rather than heading over to teaching it. Education initiatives, implementing media literacy programs in schools to teach students critical thinking skills, which is very important today. Fact-checking techniques, and how to identify misinformation and disinformation online and offline. Public awareness campaigns. Palau relies on a lot of these campaigns because people like to talk within groups and they like to learn as groups. That's how we usually learn. But launching public awareness campaigns to educate Palauans about the importance of media literacy and the consequences of spreading or falling into false information. These campaigns could include a lot of workshops, seminars, and informational material that can be distributed between various media platforms. Collaboration with media outlets. It's very important to know and understand how to teach media literacy, how to have students or younger people or older generations understand it in the way that they can and perceive. And collaboration with media outlets, working with local media outlets to promote responsible journalism practices. The things that we teach are not something that we pull right out of our brain at that moment. It's something that you have to learn. It's a process. Also with community engagement and long-term monitoring, evaluation, and adaptation after you've set all of that up. So this is sort of like a case study that I wanted to find something that I can use to apply to Palau in terms of teaching media literacy. So media literacy information Education and trainings are essential countermeasures against disinformation, involving the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and using various forms of communication. The common goals of media literacy programs include understanding the media industry, awareness of manipulation techniques, and familiarity with digital technologies. Many programs focus on children and adolescents due to their susceptibility to online hoaxes and propaganda. But public education and youth programs are crucial for teaching people at a very early life, so it's easier for them to discern between fake news and real news, or manipulation, disinformation, misinformation. But media literacy programs aren't just limited to the youth. Adults also need training, especially in Palau. Not a lot of adults or older generations know exactly what is going on outside of Palau. We're living in this bubble in Palau where we only rely on information that we hear from our peers, our families, and that's the ones that we trust most because it's kind of like a cultural thing too. But media literacy for adults can occur in various settings such as libraries. And in Palau, there's certain places where you can talk to the elders or older people about it. Sorry. And very important is train the trainer. In this book, not a book, well, it's a collection of reports, research, and it's called Countering Disinformation Effectively, and it comes with like a bunch of case studies, but then I finally found a case study that really could help Palau in a way. With media literacy, and then during one of their explanations, they really used the train the trainer method in Learn to Discern program by IREX, and the report really based a lot of emphasis on the importance of having a teacher who understands it all or actually has like knowledge about media literacy. And civil society and government agency, it's very important that we run public awareness and release educational tools to promote media literacy. For instance, according to the report, Sweden established a psychological defense agency to counter disinformation. We can come up in Palau, although it may take some time, it's better to start out now than never, or later. So a lot of examples are shown in this collection of reports and research that could really help Palau and have them apply. Ultimately, media literacy in Palau is about empowering individuals to be more informed, more educated, more aware and active in terms of media literacy or social media platforms, the information that we perceive daily, and being able to apply that into our democracy, our cultures, and our environment. It's about recognizing the power of media to shape our lives and futures and equipping ourselves with the knowledge and skills necessary. And this concludes my presentation, and I'm very open to any discussions afterwards. I'm very excited for that. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dun. So since Ms. Lauder has an important meeting later, so we're going to have a group photo first, and please come close to the middle, and we will have a beautiful group photo together. Please, everyone, come to the middle.
The students from two sides, please get closer to the center. We are going to take a group photo. Yeah, everyone stand up and then move to the center, please. 摄影师要来前面。这边，赶快瞧一下。Everyone stand up. If you didn't show up in the photo, you are counted as absent today. It's a threat. Okay, gather around. Look the front. 进得去吗？大概到哪里？ Squeeze in. And then people in the back might need to stand up. Okay, gather around. Show your face, smile. Happy ending, not yet. Okay, when I count to 1, 2, 3, everyone cheese and look at the front. 1, 2, 3, cheese. In order to make sure everyone is in the photo, I will ask the photographer to move here and to the side and take different angle, okay? 好，来，过来。Okay, one more time. Look here, everyone, cheese. No 1, 2, 3 this time, just cheese. Okay, good. Over there, let's move to the other angle. Everyone look here, please, to make sure everyone is in the photo. Okay, 3, 2, 1, cheese. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Please go back to your seats.
Great photo, everybody.
Please take your seats. Our panel is not finished yet. Now, we would like to conclude our event with a round of comments from our panelists and give you the opportunity to ask our experts your question in the final Q&A session. We therefore give the floor back to our host, Mr. Jonathan Fernivo.
Is it working? Ah, great. Okay, so we're going to have about 50 minutes Q&A. I'm going to start off by asking a couple of questions from the panelists here, warm them up a little bit. So if you kind of have your own questions, we'll kind of come to you in the next 10, 15 minutes. Maybe put up your hand, give your name and who the question's for, or if it's just for the whole panel. I'm going to start off with Billion, actually. Okay. Quick one. How easy is it to recruit and also to train volunteers? And for those who might be interested, how would they go about joining your COFAX?
The reason why we launch as a volunteer program because we don't have money. I think it's a super basic reason. We just like that a club inside a campus, in the college campus. Since my partner, who is from computer science background, myself from political science background, it's a project trying to make technology people and non-technology people to work together. how do we motivate a volunteer? So first, actually, all the like management book might tell you, volunteer is the lead person that you should like hire because actually they are not really controllable. Yeah. I mean, you are not motivated by money. You are not motivated by your salary. And how do we motivate people? Like we share the common. We share the value in common, like democracy, resilience, and we want to be helpful to our country. The second might be openness. Openness means even I'm one of the organizers, I don't have that much authority to decide. I don't do any kind of censorship. I don't do any kind of background check. I don't look like you're my friend, so I'm closer to your content. Who is I'm stranger? Who is stranger to me? So their content is not worthy. We're trying to put that kind of a basic governance rule inside this whole system, and also the gamification. I think that's our three topics. How do we motivate the volunteers?
It's longer, a bit more complicated. Okay. At the center of your organization is kind of this trust in technology and how effective it is. And a lot of talk about AI is this kind of, is it going to be a force for good or not in the future? Even people like Elon Musk, and they'll kind of get them up, and they're kind of confused about which way it's going to go. And growing up in science fiction films, there was always like kind of movies were either like this kind of dystopian future or this kind of utopian future. Simple question. I'm kind of, what kind of future do you think is going to be with AI?
AI is just like technology, and actually AI is not a new topic. Take back to last year, people put AI in every kind of conferences because like it's a buzzword. I'm not sure if that is because this is the reason why they can ask for their funder to provide support to those kind of conferences. However, AI is just like imitate how the previous data to provide and to do like some counter narrative like the Siri, like recently generative AI or ChatGPT. They imitate how people talk because some do like provide a lot of data to train how you should talk. From our side, we think AI is just like a neutral technology. It's just like a knife. You can put knife at doing cutting to provide sashimi, but you can also use knife as a weapon. And as for the AI is just like how do they imitate the previous data and to provide new decision, provide new combination. From our side, we think the next generation might be new way. We think people like generative content can be faster. So I think that is also the generation how we win the trust from each other. I mean, in the future, that physical engagement might be more and more crucial, like real teacher, real campus. I mean, if you can just rely on all those kind of open source like lessons on the internet, why do you like need to come to the campus or university? I mean, because like the real engagement, the real interaction is important. Human being is important.
Thank you. So if you have any more questions for Billion, we'll kind of come to the floor in the next 5 or 10 minutes. First, quick question for Andrew. So you're a publicly funded organization, which I guess gives you some kind of freedom. You don't have the kind of the financial problems a lot of kind of media organizations, and so you can be more creative maybe. Not a slave to advertising, clicks or things like this. But I kind of feel, okay, how do you think the media is going to survive in the future then, especially if young people don't want to pay for news? And maybe who do you think should be responsible for funding the news in the future?
I'll start with your last question first. So we are a taxpayer-funded organization. That means that we're a public media. All of you, thank you very much for paying my salary. And I think that public media is extremely important and extremely powerful, and more important as we have different types of organizations which are running media companies. And I mentioned this in my speech. There is a huge imbalance between media professionals and tech professionals. It seems like more and more media organizations are being run by tech organizations, and I'm not sure that they have the media training or the journalistic training or the ethics that we all learned in Journalism 101. So I do believe in public media. I'm a big fan and a big consumer of public media, not just because I work for public media, but as a consumer of news, I still think that this is going to be the one place in the future where you will find quality journalism. And I think that public media is going to become more important than ever as we move forward.
Chris, I know your mission statements, I've read them, there's 3 of them, very interesting, but at the heart of all your kind of mission statements at CMA is this idea of to try to advance Taiwan in the international media. And as I mentioned in my kind of talk earlier, Taiwan has become much more popular in the Western media. But I wanted to know what you think are the kind of main reasons behind why Taiwan has become so popular in the Western media.
I think everyone will have different answers to this question, but to me, Taiwan is becoming more important for Western media because of probably 2 things. The first one is TSMC chips. So that's an easy answer, and everyone knows why. And the second one is more complex, probably because of Donald Trump. Because it became apparent that Donald Trump used Taiwan as a card. Even before he was inaugurated, he initiated a phone call with Taiwan. And since then, Donald Trump played the Taiwan card in his this grand game with China. And so that I think that raised the awareness in the international community about Taiwan. And later, the Ukraine-Russian war broke out, and people also started compare Ukraine to Taiwan. So I think that makes Taiwan more visible for the international community. Also, I personally witnessed an era where Western media pulled out of Taiwan. It's perhaps between 2008 to 16 when Ma Ying-jeou was in power, and the cross-strait relations were said to be more warm, to be warmer compared to now. So Taiwan for Western media is always a war and peace story. That's what an AP guy told me. He said Taiwan is basically a war and peace story for Western readers. So usually Western readers pay attention to Taiwan either for its potential conflict with China, or natural disaster, such as the earthquake in 1999 or typhoon. But I think the dynamics changed completely right now, especially during the past 6 years. So we started seeing Western media reposting or reopening their offices in Taipei. For example, CNN, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and VOA, RFA, they are trying to expand their operations in Taiwan.
Hello. I think also it's partially related to the foreign media pulling out of China. In this day and age, it's really difficult to be a foreign media outfit in China or Hong Kong, and many of those people actually came to Taiwan. I mean, that's the second half of the story, right? You're talking about how people left Taiwan from 2008 to 2016 when ties got better. With the changes in China and Hong Kong, they've actually all flooded back to Taiwan. So as somebody who's, like Chris, has been doing journalism in Taiwan, not quite as long as you, I'm about 25 years doing journalism here, and working for public media, trying to share stories about Taiwan with the rest of the world, to have it be an uphill battle to convince people to understand why Taiwan stories are important and how these stories connect with people in other countries when they don't necessarily know it, to then all of a sudden seeing it as front page news in the New York Times, seeing it on the BBC, seeing it in all the international media and saying, I told that story 10 years ago and nobody was paying attention. Why is everybody paying attention now? I mean, I think the shorter answer is that there are more media here who are telling these stories and know why they should be telling the stories. But I think we've gotten better at telling the stories. We've gotten better at seeing how Taiwan is connected to the rest of the world. 20 years ago, we weren't really I apologize, I wasn't really talking about semiconductors. Obviously, everybody is talking about semiconductors now, but it's not just semiconductors. It's also democracy. Taiwan is one of the freest media environments in all of Asia, if not the world. So that enables CNA, that enables Taiwan Plus to be telling stories, not just about Taiwan, true stories about Taiwan, for better or for worse. You know, we don't only tell the happy stories about Taiwan, we tell the bad stuff too, as the proper media organization does. But we can do that for other countries as well. And I hope that we're serving as a beacon of light for a lot of the other media outfits around the world that are cutting their costs, that are closing down their newsrooms, that are, you know, getting rid of people, that are dealing with, you know, misinformation, disinformation, that are dealing with disruptions like AI, to be able to continue the work that we're doing and to actually be hiring more people to be telling these stories, not just about Taiwan, but about the rest of the region, about Hong Kong, about China, about Myanmar. This is actually a true example of Taiwan's soft power, and about Taiwan's ability to help other countries by doing great journalism.
Quickly off the back of that, that's the part that I find really fascinating, is that, you know, you say that the stories are being sanctioned more, and yet a few years ago the editors wouldn't listen to you at all. And I'm wondering, like, you know, I talk a lot with my students about this kind of selection process of news. You know, there are millions and millions of events which happen all the time, and yet some get selected and say, this is news. And what is it that suddenly makes it kind of news? And now editors, you see all the time, every single day on The Guardian or the BBC, is that there are 2, 3, 4 Taiwan stories, which they were never there before. So obviously editors are saying, this is suddenly newsworthy. And, you know, you could say China and Taiwan, there's always been tension between China and Taiwan, and it's not necessarily kind of like changed in the way that suddenly, yeah, we want as many stories as possible about Taiwan. I'm wondering, like, editorially, why suddenly they think it's incredibly newsworthy.
It's really interesting. I used to work as a stringer for the Voice of America, and so I would pitch stories about Taiwan to VOA. And I would talk with a lot of other stringers and other foreign correspondents here in Taiwan, and they would tell me, and it was an experience that resonated with me, they would say, I keep pitching stories about Taiwan, and they keep asking me the China angle. But if you're pitching a story about indigenous groups in Taiwan, where's the China angle? Maybe there is a China angle, but it's like a very, very small, not necessarily important angle. I remember there was a story about former Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je taking the MRT to work. And I remember a friend of mine pitched that story to their publication, and the publication's like, where's the China angle? Of course, there's no China angle, but then like the next day, the international media were all reporting on it because it is an interesting story, a mayor who takes public transportation to work. I think that the stories about Taiwan that resonate with the rest of the world are all around us. And that's our challenge, is to be able to figure out how those stories resonate with other people. And there are always stories that will resonate with people around the world. We had a story yesterday about the MRT line, the elevated line, the yellow line, and how it's not in operation right now because of the earthquake. And we had a discussion in our newsroom, well, it sounds kind of like a local story. Like, who in the other part of the world, you know, in the other side of the world would really care about this? And my response was, there was great footage of people walking down that line, escaping from the train. There was footage of people on the train dealing with that earthquake. I'm sure everybody in the world who is in an earthquake zone that has elevated public transportation system is wondering how safe are these systems? Should countries be building these types of systems? How much money is that going to take to fix? What is the impact on these people's lives who are now having to commute an extra hour to work? You can make a local story into something that is interesting to people on the other side of the world. I'm completely 100% convinced of that. And that's our challenge as journalists, to figure out what that connection is and to have these discussions. And that's something that we do every morning. 8:30 a.m., 10 a.m., we have 2 editorial meetings. All of our journalists sit together and discuss these stories and try to figure out how to make it a story that would be of interest to somebody on the other side of the world.
We're going to throw it open to the floor now. So if anybody's got any questions, you want to put your hand up and say your name and who's it for? Sure.
Hi, my name's Josh. I'm actually with Taiwan Plus, but I'm really interested. I have a question for you, Chris. Because you gave the basketball analogy of being on defense or defense, because we're almost always one step behind in terms of misinformation or disinformation. You know, it comes in new ways and in new formats, and we're trying to catch up to stop it. And it just, I guess the question raised for me was, why do we always need to be one step behind? Are there, and I guess this is open for the panel, maybe particularly for Billion, because it relates to COFAX, is there not more that we can do to be on the offense, to actually try and get ahead of misinformation and that kind of using offense in a positive way? I guess that I'm just curious if that's possible at all.
Hello. That's a very difficult question to answer, but yeah, I use the basketball analogy because I think for now, the ones who initiate the disinformation campaign or cognitive warfare is always one step ahead of us, because bad guys always do bad things first before the police try to catch them, right? So that's the situation for now. But I also mentioned about fighting AI with AI. So I think that's probably an opportunity comes up there, if we can fight AI with AI. For example, we're now, the only thing we can do for us right now is after a fake story was published, we do the fact checking, and the result probably comes up maybe weeks later, but the damage has been done. So if we can use AI technology or whatever to to speed up the fact checking process, maybe we can do it maybe in 5 minutes or even real time, and I think that would change the game. So that's what you talked about. We're going to be from the defensive side to the offensive side.
I would like to talk about 2 parts. First is COVID doesn't do any kind of censorship. And in some cases, like government, the National Justice, or like MJIB, Ministry of Justice Investigation Bureau. My request, COFAX, they might email us, can you provide who forward all this information to you? They might think there might be some malicious disinformation spread among our users. And they want their personal data so that they can do like punishment, penalty, or any kind of after situation for them. Every time COVID might reject, we think we need to protect our users, especially their personal data, especially their privacy. We think of those users are the ones who are suffering from disinformation, not the ones who spread disinformation. I think that's the reason why how we build the trust. What we're trying to do is grassroots sites, empowerment to motivate people to fact check themselves. We are not journalists. We are not someone who has really high authority. We are not mayors. We are not president. However, we all say we're much closer to you. Me, you can see me all the time. I'm with you. Our users from different walks of life, our fact checker also from different walks of life. They are like housewife, retirement, ages, olders, students, farmers, pharmacists, different kind of people join together. I think that is how we build a real resilience. Second, how do we use technology? I think if we need to use a tangible way to think of like how to combine AI with AI. There might be about two challenges. First, AI actually, they relies on like formal data, as I mentioned. So actually, how do you use like a model that uses formal data to conquer the new challenge? Actually, AI did really bad grade among like predicting. Even though COVID itself, we use like AI to do pre-bunking. However, those pre-bunking much more like how to use AI as large language model to provide fact check process. Like you should not trust this information because it might be wrong. And what you can do if you want to do some fact check, that is some tangible way what we can do to accelerate the fact check process with AI. However, if you relate to if you found new disinformation, you as AI, it might be a tragedy and a disaster. However, another tangible way to collaborate with AI, not rely on AI, like even like from journalist side, people might use AI to use some like grammar check. As for fact check side, like I mentioned, to use AI, provide some hint or a clue to do fact check. That's one way. Our engineer did some really great prompts and to do a lot of revision to make the AI can be helpful among fighting against disinformation. The second part, actually, democracy takes time. AI doesn't take that much time, actually. So actually, we don't be lazy. We need to like focus on what we really focus on. Why those kind of fabricated video from Barack Obama or Donald Trump can be trusted? People don't trust AI. People trust the faith. People do have the trust to the president, and to their talk, to their voices. As for AI, do not put that much fear, but to see people do have the certificate or to announce, like to rely on the human being and to build some real connection. I think that is some tangible way to work with AI, but not to having that much fear to our AI. Thank you.
About combating malicious actors that are using technology as their comparative advantage to attack or to discredit the media, our comparative advantage is quality reporting. So if we can report on people who are using, technology to discredit or our reporting or to spread disinformation, then if we can be great investigative reporters, unearth those cases and, bring light to them, then I think that we're using our strength, perhaps offensively, on the offense. How's that?
Here. Oh, yeah. It's okay? Okay, I would like to, my name is Jeremy. I'm from JMC2, also from Argentina. I would like to develop this question because I took this note when Chris Wang was talking about the algorithm, and they say negative information gets more views, and also Andrew was talking about try to develop it or understand or training people to understand algorithm or AI. It takes time, it takes money, and it, of course, is understandable. So as a student, as a young generation, I would say we have different behaviors, and when you were young, you read the news on the paper and eat. Here nowadays, you go to eat the piantan, you watch CCTV crash cars, and but we watch our phones. So in a way of the different generations need to be linked with everyone in the job. And as students, I'm wondering, maybe we understand more this algorithm, or because it's changing all the time. You say AI is changing. For example, just briefly example, on Instagram at the beginning, they would say 1 minute reels, you get more views, then in 30 seconds, then it's a picture with the music. It's changing all the time, maybe in 1 month, 3 times. So I'm wondering, does the company has any investment to train new generation students to make a research on AI and algorithm to use in our favor?
Hello. I'm not sure if I get your question right, but I'll try to answer. I think the key you're talking about is probably not algorithm, but the way traditional media outlets like us need to face the challenge of modern times, because an older guys like me or Andrew. We're actually not that tech savvy, and as you mentioned, obviously we have a gap of understanding with you guys. Of course, I think you know a lot better about what kind of news story or format of expression would be popular today than us. And all I do is text, and Andrew does the video, and I think we need a traditional media outlets like us should find a new way or new format. For example, a 30-second video or reels or like Google Short. So yeah, something like that, this to increase the page views and eyeballs. I think that's the real challenge. But in terms of algorithm, I don't think we can ever figure it out, because we try to ask Google, what can we do to improve our search status on your page, and they would never tell us. Yeah, because it's considered a secret, right? So I think I echo Andrew's comment earlier. I think the more credible news outlet there are, I think people, it's better for readers and people to make sure that they receive quality news all the time.
So I have to be very upfront and transparent about the fact that I'm probably the oldest person, one of the oldest people in our newsroom. We're very fortunate to have a very, very young newsroom. I think the average age is under 30. If it's just reporters, it's definitely under 30. So we also have a small digital team within our newsroom. We launched an Instagram page last December, and in 6 months we have 25,000 followers. So they're experimenting with shorts and reels and carousels. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that the way that we reach our younger audience is not through our TV shows. And in fact, if you look at the numbers, the vast majority of people who consume Taiwan Plus content is on social media: Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Unfortunately, we can't do TikTok because we're public media in Taiwan. But we do reach the audience through those other above-mentioned channels. That's just the news part of Taiwan Plus. So we also have a programming division which also does Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and maybe 6 different YouTube channels. The news does, I think, 3 news YouTube channels. So we have probably 8 or 9 YouTube channels altogether. So it's through these that we're actually, and particularly through shorts and reels, that we're getting a lot of interaction with younger audiences. So if you're looking for a job and you're looking for an internship, I would highly recommend tossing us a resume. We would love to work with more people that are much younger than me.
One really quick aside to that. When we're looking at kind of stories of what people want, like say I'm kind of your generation again, so there's kind of this disconnect between like a younger audience that you're trying to talk to. You think, what do they want to read? What's interests them? And last year I saw a really interesting story which talked about the 2 top stories for quite a major kind of media outlet. Number 1 was Israel and a kind of war story. Number 2 was how to bake the perfect cookies for your dog. So, it's which way do you go with content? It can be incredibly confusing sometimes for both parties. Okay.
I actually have 2 questions, one for Andrew and one for Billion. So I'll start with Billion first. You stated that Kofax is volunteer-based, and I wanted to know how you ensure that the people that you will hire is reliable, and how do you, in the earlier stages, how did you build like a reliable bank of sources? Because a lot of the times people may come in with like under disguise with like positive like impact, but realistically they want to like spread like maybe propaganda. How do you stop that from happening on your platform? And yeah, how did you build like a reliable source?
There are 2 questions. First, the first group I engage with a volunteer. Actually, I don't hire them because they're volunteer. And that's also the reason why I don't have their name or any kind of personal details. Maybe the most, even email, actually. They can just, as long as you do have a Gmail, Instagram, Facebook, sorry, so old, and a GitHub account, you can just log into Ko-Fi platform and provide your own fact check. So that's the reason why I don't know them, they don't know me, even though who are really active. Only if they come to my physical workshop, that we meet each other in person. That's the time I know their like personal data or their face or their expression. The other time, I don't know my volunteers. That's the reason why we do have like, over 2,400 different kind of individuals as volunteers. Second, the evaluation system inside Ko-Fi, we rely on feedback. So if there's some malicious or maybe like fraud information or propaganda campaigner who got state sponsor, really bad person, get into the platform to provide fake fact check. Actually, since our fact check platform is open can be really effective. I'm not sure, it also answers your question. Those kind of algorithm and data and AI and a feature, get engaged with some technology group. It doesn't need to be like Garage Zero. It can be like SitCon or maybe for students and COSCOP, some conference for coders. Different kind of group might share the common value as openness. They kind of openness share vary. For example, if there is some malicious user that forward this information or false content, actually those kind of content can also be published on our platform and people can review their content, saying it should not be a real person, it should not be a real account, it should not be a compliant content. They can report, they can appeal to me. And I may dealing with the emails every day, especially for those, can I delete this content? Can I delete that kind of spam? I don't want that published on your website. And the other might be, I think of this content is bad. I don't think it's a compliant fact check. They can provide those kind of information on our website. Also, our disinformation program also support multiple replies. That means if you found some disinformation doesn't get their verification in a compliant way, you can provide your own fact check for itself. So that's the reason why you can see some disinformation have like 3 or 4 different kind of fact check, and there might be some really great fact check than others. Actually, anger and criticize, critical way can be a quite great way to do this kind of work, because actually, if you think you can provide a better fact check, you think I'm better. And that kind of feeling as I'm better shows a sense of achievement for our fact checkers.
Thank you so much. And my second question was for Andrew. You spoke about how you use AI in the workroom and you touched on data. I wanted you to expand on it, please.
Sure, yeah. So one of the interesting uses that we used AI for, generative AI for, was we had a chart that showed how much Taiwan has spent on defense over the last 10 years. And it has the figures in Taiwan dollars for each year. So for us at Taiwan Plus, we translate into US dollars, which is more universally understood than Taiwan dollars by our viewers. But the problem is that the exchange rate was different every year. So our defense reporter input the information and then asked for AI to calculate the figures in US dollars based on the exchange rates for those years. And then the really important part is he also asked AI to give him the sources for those exchange rates for every year. So it did the calculation, and then he could go back and check it. And that saved him probably half an hour of work just by being able to create the correct prompt and get the results that he wanted from generative AI. So again, I think that the most important thing is whenever we use generative AI tools in the newsroom is to always ask for a source. Then you check the sources, you click in and make sure that it's a legit exchange rate website. And as long as you're fact checking what AI has generated, then you can be pretty confident in the results.
So my question is that, like CNA or Taiwan Plus, if any of those agencies have been accused of using AI in a wrong manner, and in case that it happens in the future, how would you handle that situation?
A quick answer is no, because we have very limited use of generative AI in our newsroom as of now. One thing the CNA does with AI is we publish a newsletter every morning. So we train the AI model to pick and choose the news story for us in the CNA standard. The CNA standard is what I call means that we're not picking and choosing those stories from a sensational angle, but because the CNA is more for hard news and serious news, so we train the AI model to pick and choose those stories by our standards. So other than that, I don't think the CNA, same with Taiwan Plus, we don't use the AI to write stories for us. And even if we do, we will have to declare that to make sure that the readers know it's generated by AI. But so far we didn't use the AI to generate contents.
We haven't been accused of that yet. One of the reasons why we made the guidelines public was basically to get ahead of that as a possible way of criticizing Taiwan Plus. So it's sort of our way of being transparent about how we create our news and the standards that we have set for ourselves. Does that mean that nobody will ever accuse us of doing that? We've been accused of almost everything in the book. And I think we handle it the way we would handle it the way we handle most accusations. We would do an internal review into it to make sure, just to make sure that we didn't use AI. A lot of criticisms from outside the organization we don't respond to. Just as a result, online you can't respond to everything. Just look at the Taiwan Plus social media and have a look at the comments below, and you'll see why we don't respond to everything. if it's a little legitimate concern from a legitimate source, then we may respond. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Allison, and I am JMC2. I have a question for Andrew, and I know that your news is funded by taxpayers, so that means the government backs it. How do you balance the independence of your news and the wants and needs of the government and what they want to portray?
That's an excellent question, and I'm so glad that you asked that. This is one of the questions that we've been asked since day one. I'm very proud of the fact that our mission statement has a declaration of our editorial independence. It was built into the bid process for CNA when they bid for this project, that they must adhere to this policy of editorial independence as they ran us. And that's something that's continued under public television service. I'm also proud to say that as management of the newsroom, nobody from the government has ever told me that I must report on something or I must not report on something. So I think that that's really key to us being able to be editorial independent. So it's baked into the way we run our newsroom. All editorial decisions come within the newsroom. Occasionally we'll get like friendly suggestions, and we look at news stories entirely on the basis of whether or not it's news and whether or not it should be reported when deciding whether or not to do a story. So friendly suggestions, always acceptable, but we don't use that to determine whether or not we're going to report on something. So I think also our viewers can rest assured that we have that editorial independence. If you look at our news, again, I think the best way to determine whether a news organization is truly editorially independent is to look at what kinds of stories are being reported. There was our top story, I think yesterday or the day before, was about President Tsai's legacy when it comes to dealing with indigenous issues. It's not a story that the government would ask us to do. It's a story that was truthful and maybe isn't something that a propaganda organization would run. I think that's the best way to put it. But if you look at the breadth of our coverage, the good, the bad, the ugly, we'll report on it as long as it's news. And it all goes back to Journalism 101. But thank you for that question. It's a question I love to get, and I think it's a great question to answer publicly. Yeah.
Hello. So I have a question for Miss Lee. Hi. Okay, so I just learned about your Kofax website, and it's so fascinating. That way, when I got on, it's like a Facebook comment section. So I ask a question and the comments pop up. I have like 3 questions for you. Like as someone, like let's say if you mentioned that there's an organization in Thailand that you share your platform with. Do you profit off that? Okay, so yeah, like let's say I would want from my country to like invest in a platform within my country, like you can share a branch or yeah. I want to know how I can do that. And another question is, are there levels to being terminated as a fact checker on your Kofax website? And if you do receive volunteer money, or money, if specifically from who, and I want to know the money. I don't know. I want to know how the money can be used to improve your website specifically. Okay, thank you. Yeah, there's 3 questions. So like, yeah, I was asking if Thailand you'd profit. Right. Yes.
Okay, first, since Thailand also have disinformation issue, right? Also, Thailand has a royal family. And in some cases, due to a special political condition, they are not allowed to really criticize the royal family. So that's the reason why they also need this kind of grassroots fact-check organization, also community. They also have some like board game to provide media training because they cannot talk about politics openly, publicly. So if someone say, "Are you talking about politics?" They say, "Oh, we're just playing board games." Prevent from censorship from the government. Thailand visited Taiwan in 2019. So their team, their co-founder visited Taiwan, and the medias, they say they want to use this kind of platform in the country. Also in Thailand, they use Line a lot. I think that's a basic reason why. Since we provide all our source code and we provide tutorial, how do you can launch a fact chatbot, launch a code on your own laptop. So they also have some civic technology team like OpenDream. And during that time, we also met another funder in Southeast Asia. So they are the one who actually from EU and super qualified for them to provide those kind of like, especially for financial sponsor to their engineers. Then around 1 year or 2 years later, they launched a fact-check chatbot in the country already. I think that's a quite great way, and I believe it might be happen in your country as well because our source is all free. I think free and openness can be a really great way to share all the information and data. I mean, you are all students. You don't have that much resources or financial condition. However, openness and those kind of free software can be a really great way for you to do learning, when you could like launch a new job, new position, and launch your own career. Second, we don't do any kind of background check. That's the reason why we're trying to engage with much more volunteers as we could. As for donation part, and since COVID actually for these 8 years, our server got much more expensive. At the first beginning, we used a free database website called Airtable. However, several months later, like in the beginning, the new year of like 2017, our system just got shut down because they say you already like over your like limitation, like 1,000 items. After that, we need to pay our own server and our own all the infrastructure. So actually, yes, we receive donation. We as an organization, we also have a donation account, of course, like tax deduction. Normally, COVID itself, we need to around like $300 per month for those kind of like basic server on the internet, like server rent. So if we do receive like donation from the public or from volunteers, actually civic technology community much more like if you don't have money, you provide your contribution like volunteer. If you do have money but you don't have time, like some elders, they may say, oh, we can provide money. So I think that's some way, especially non-profit organization can do.
Wait, and how is that money used?
How is that money used? Like on server, right?
Yes.
If you say how, does that mean like I use it well? I'm not wasteful.
I wanted to ask, if you don't do background checks on your volunteers, how do you ensure the credibility of the volunteers? And like, how do you know that they won't also contribute to the spread of that misinformation?
Oh. Yes.
Add on to her.
Yes.
So, because on your, when you type in something and the information is generated, it says, Zona, click this as misinformed. So I was asking the levels to being terminated. So like, if 10 people saw the comment and then and clicked it as misinformation, do you terminate them as fact checkers? Our
way is not terminate this. We will show them all publicly so people can review. However, if some comments and some content got really bad feedbacks, like they do have a lot of negative think of that fact check is useless. The fact check is not compliant. Our algorithm might make those kind of fact check less be seen, less visible, especially on chatbot sites. They cannot see, especially users, because it might be a little bit confusing if you can see all the content, even though that's false content. So if a content and fact check receive a lot of like negative feedback, the users may not see that easily. Our algorithm might make those invisible. So that's some basic way. Actually, that question also that got questioned by here. We use like feedback and evaluation to reduce those kind of content be seen, also be reviewed. So actually, all the fact checker might review all this content. That's the reason why even we don't do any kind of background check, but actually, so far, most content is still in a compliant and static way. If that is some really bad content, actually, I might get some report, and I will do the revision.
Mr. Chris, do you feel that journalism will remain the opposing force to AI and be human in reporting the truth? Or do you feel like we have to accept that eventually journalism may just become social media and AI? Do you feel that journalism will always be a competitive force against AI? Or do you feel that we will one day have to accept that journalism will be social media and artificial intelligence?
This is going to be tough. I think the way we're talking about AI today reminds me of the way we talked about robots maybe 20 years ago, when people fear that robots might someday replace all human human workers. So I would think that eventually the media needs to know how to work with AI and use it to your advantage rather than the opposite. But I think we're all trying to feel how AI is going to affect us right now, because I don't know a lot about AI, and I think most people in the media business too. So right now we're still in a stage where we are trying to explore whether it's good, where's the good and where's the bad. And I think the same as social media, because I think in the early stage, media consider social media as their opponents, I guess. But gradually, you learn that you need to work with social media. And right now, we can't live without social media, because most people read news on social media rather than going to our website or even Taiwan Plus News website. So I think somehow we need to find a way to coexist with each other, but learn to work with them without harming. Yeah.
I feel like your question and perhaps your question are really the same question, and that is, are we optimists or are we pessimists? And I think at the end of the day, and I don't want to answer on behalf of either Billion or Chris or John, but I think at the end of the day, the fact that we're all sitting up here on this panel is because we are somewhat optimistic. To stay in journalism for as long as we have would suggest that even though we may sometimes look and sound negative about the way the world is going, we are probably at the end of the day, and maybe we don't like to admit it, but we're probably all optimists. And I think that probably answers maybe both of your questions. Obviously, Billion has to be optimistic about the volunteers she works with and their ability to determine whether each, they're all what they're doing is for good and not for evil. Yeah, in the same way that our belief in journalism, I think, is optimistic. And we will probably be lifelong journalists.
Before, and when we think about, like, say, trying to convince the students that journalism is a force for good, and we need to fund it, it kind of just reminds me kind of the old days when 20 years ago the kind of music industry had went through similar phases, and everybody was using Napster, and everybody was downloading and saying, hey, this is great, it's free. And there was a crisis within that industry, and the same way as like the kind of film industry, movie industry, film industry. And everybody was torrenting, and everybody was downloading kind of films, and then they found an answer, and people were kind of quite happy to use Spotify and Netflix. I imagine, like I say, we're kind of optimistic people. We will kind of come out of all this. We're just kind of not there yet at the moment, and we're not sure what it's going to be. We haven't got any kind of solutions yet, but I feel that we're all kind of optimistic that we'll kind of get through this.
We have come to an end of today's panels. Thank you all for your participation, and see you next time.